Hey everyone, this is Josh back with Cardboard Chronicles, and today I'm joined by Brent, the founder and CEO of PWCC. How you doing, Brent?
Really good. Happy Monday.
Yes, sir. So today we're going to hear about all the exciting things coming out of PWCC. We're going to talk about the high-end trading card market and the investing side of that, and then also we want to touch on the Michael Jordan Green PMG if we have some time. So Brent, why don't you kick us off? Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background in the hobby.
Sure. So my background's a little bit unique. I've been coming at this from a very different place. It starts kind of where everybody did. I was a kid collecting, uh, cards, and I did it for forever. And then I went to school and I became an engineer. And then after doing that for 6 or 7 years, this is like 2012 timeframe. I'd always had PWCC on the side as a sort of a passion side business, and then decided to leave engineering and do this full time. So it's been about 5 years now. I had 3 employees at the time. We have 25 employees now, and it's been rooted in this vision that we have that trading cards should be an investment vehicle. I spent years now thinking about why are trading cards so suppressed in terms of comparison to worlds like fine art and coins, let's say. And I'm left with no answers except for the fact that we just haven't had the infrastructure and the leadership to really present it to investors and make it a formidable option. There's good reasons why we're suppressed, but some of them are based on just perception that's flatly wrong. We've had a lack of tools, a lack of structure around what investors need in order to invest. Trust and safety have not been where they need to be. We've had a lot of bad actors, fraud, people are in jail, the FBI. I mean, we've had all kinds of, bad autographs. And I mean, there's just been a lot of that, which every collectibles industry has gone through this at some point, including fine art. It's all part of growing up, I suppose, but we're still kind of coming out of that time. Um, and then we just need something to kind of bring it all together. And so this company that I built, PWCC, is about trying to unify the market around what it needs, and then kind of allow investors to take it where they want it to go. Until this was built, we haven't really had what I would consider to be a viable argument for why somebody should consider this instead of, say, fine art.
Sure.
I think coming in a year from now, I think it'll be very different. And I think we have an argument for why trading cards is going to be a very, very competitive um, option for people. There's just some things about what we do that's significantly superior to any other market. So,
So did you start the company based on your sort of your passion for the hobby? Is that what it started at all?
oh, for sure. I mean, I love this stuff. I don't. There's something about collecting as a human being that's just very desired. But then when you attach it to professional sport, there's just something very visceral about this. And then also a lot of us did this as kids, and so one of the competitive advantages that we have over fine art or coins is I've got 20 million people in this country alone that used to collect cards, or at least have 1 degree of separation from someone who did as a kid at some point. Fine art and coins, they can't touch that. That means I have the ability to relate to people in a way. Back when things were wholesome, I mean, I think one of the fun things about trading cards, as all tangible assets, um, they appeal to more than just ROI. And while all ROI is absolutely the principles that govern us, people get into tangible assets because they're something more than stocks. And I think in that vein, trading cards have something to offer that's far superior to any of these other competitive tangible asset markets. And sure, I'm biased a bit, but I'm also an engineer, and I've been studying this. And I think we have a really convincing argument, definitely.
Well, I totally agree, man. I'm a fellow engineer as well, so I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Um, so why don't you just tell us about what you guys have going on right now? I know that you guys have a lot of new stuff coming out, and it's sort of coming out little by little. But why don't you just walk us through some of the investment side of stuff, and then also the vault?
Sure. So when I looked at the trading card market, there were three big things that were lacking. Four, if you want to count just trust and security. But the three big ones that were missing was access to data. So if you're going to invest, you need to be able to study a market, and having data in a way that was presented it was just a sore wound. We have data, but it wasn't compiled in a way that's really studyable. Um, and so we wanted to provide more market analysis. And so about a year ago, we built these market indices, which we've been updating for about a year. We continue to do that. We're going to be building new indices, which are going to be more investment minded in the coming months. And then we've compiled some data sets which are industry unique. They're not publicly available yet. They're based on trade frequency and market cap to try to assess, what is the market? What has it been? Where is it headed? If you're an investor trying to get into this space, your ability to study the market not only tells you what the prices are, but it also tells you how often you may have a chance to acquire that asset, because you're planning out a portfolio. And one of the hardest things we have in our market is because prices are so low. If you're an investor wanting to get into the market and you have $1 million, you want to get diversified, that's a lot of work in this market. You're gonna work your ass off to get $1 million into this market.
Yep.
And so it's not like writing a check to your broker. And so being able to study the market to predict it, certain conclusions, which again are not publicly available yet, but I'll mention here in this interview, is like I can statistically prove now that about 10% of the total population of a card surfaces on the open market in a 12-month period. So historically, what people have always stated is, what is supply? Well, they've said supply is the population. Well, why do we say that? We say it because we don't know what else to state. But the truth is, supply is what's available for sale. It's not what the population is. So there might be 100 Roberto Clemente rookies in PSA 8. It doesn't mean there's 100 for sale. And in fact, what we're proving now is that it's more like 10% of that is what you might have a chance to buy over the course of the year. And we're starting to see some trends now, especially on blue chip investment caliber cards, where that number is going down. It's actually going down fairly dramatically. We're already dipping into the 5% range for a lot of the most notable blue chips right now. So data, that is definitely one factor. The other thing is what you mentioned, the vault, so storage. If you're going to put millions of dollars into this market, where do you put it? People are putting it in cardboard boxes under their bed. They're putting it in safes in their garage. It's all insufficient if we want to be considered less of a joke. When I talk to my advisors, the line I use, which I'm kind of being tongue in cheek about, but I'm actually quite serious, is like, the day I know we've arrived is when wives stop making fun of their husbands. It's like the day when they can do this and not be made fun of any more than they would make fun of a fine art collection. That's the day that I know we've matured. Well, right now we're not there yet because the perception isn't where it needs to be, but storage is a big piece of it. So people, when they build a portfolio, the family doesn't have to white knuckle dad's trading card collection. They don't have to worry about him getting hit by a bus, and then what do? They don't have to worry about, what is the appraisal value? They don't have to worry about, is it insured? They don't have to worry about, how would we sell it if we needed to? All of these are answered through the vault. So we're building this repository. It's a state-of-the-art $4 million facility built from scratch out here in Tigard, Oregon. And it's like the Fort Knox of trading cards. And so it's a brick bunker of a building. It's the same thing that like Wells Fargo would use to build a safety deposit facility. Only the difference is ours is probably 4 or 5 times the size of anything a bank would build. And so inside of it, we'll store the assets, but then we'll also digitally archive them, so you have access to your portfolio in digital form. It's got state-of-the-art photography, which if anyone hasn't gone to our current auction to look at this photography, you should go and take a look at it, because the detail is second to none. We are breaking down the barriers of transparency so everyone can see what's really happening. In a lot of cases, you're going to know more about your card through our images than you would holding it in your hand, because it's essentially the magnification you get from like a jeweler's loupe. This is to enable people to put assets in third-party repository and not really regret not being able to hold it themselves. Once it's in repository, you have a lot of power. The purpose of the vault is so that you can take those assets and share them. So we have software that will allow you to send a text, send an email, customize links, slideshows, do deals for all we care, sell them, do what you want. And if you want to send them to our marketplace, of which there will be 3 different marketplaces launched throughout the next 12 months, you can sell them through us too. We don't care. Have us send it to Heritage Auctions for you. The Vault is an independent business meant to provide repository services, and we're also a fulfillment center tied to that. So whether you want your assets back at any time, whether you want those assets sent to a third party because you did a sale, whether you want it sent to a different venue to have them auctioned or whatever else, we're here to go to work for people, but it's to empower folks. What the family gets is estate planning. They get appraisal, they get insurance, they get security. At any time, these assets can be liquidized. A according to market values, and everyone can feel safe and secure about it. So data I mentioned, repository is the next one. The third one is lending. So we're opening up a lending group to take the assets which are in repository with us and lend against them. We've already been doing this. I've lent probably over $100 million over the last few years for various forms, mostly for auction. So one of the biggest things we lend against is what we call cash advances for the auction process. So when people send us a consignment or a submission to auction, and it's worth, say, $10,000, they can request up to, say, $5,000 as a cash advance, and we do that for free. And we've been doing that for a long time. And I lend, a couple $1 million a month, just doing this to enable people to feel like their assets are more liquid and they can monetize them better. We also lend on payment plans. So we offer buyers on the other side of the marketplace. We offer them a lot of leniency to make purchases and then have a fair amount of time to pay off those purchases. So that's a financing option we offer people. And the third one, which in a lot of ways is very new and hasn't existed, is vault lending. So once you have your portfolio archived with us, we will have it appraised, and we will offer you a loan against those assets should that short-term need arise. This is not for paying your bills. This is not for funding the college tuition of your child. This is for people who do deals. This is like you can have your money in a portfolio tied up and know at any moment you can have a check written on your behalf to do that next deal, which is going to make you more than, we're going to charge about a point a month in interest. And so that allows people to do a deal in over a 90-day or 6-month period of time, pay off the loan, and always have that purchasing power waiting in the wings should a deal come up where they need cash and they don't want to have to go to a bank or ask a friend. Only through trading cards can you get that kind of liquidity. So the fact that the assets, so that's the full picture. That's what's lacking. That's why investors are not involved. The fourth, which we might talk about more, is trust. I don't know if our market has really matured to accept this yet. I think we've been a hobby. I think companies like eBay, they treat us like a hobby. I think that everybody's scrambling to try to police this marketplace to make it more trusted. And even the biggest third-party auction houses historically have had fraud at their realms. I think what we have now is a much cleaner industry where we've got about 5 years, maybe as much as a decade of healing under our belt at this point. But the days of Mastro are not that far into the past, and we still deal in, bad buyers and unpaid items and shill bidding. These kinds of things, they're still part of our market, and we're, they need to be addressed. So I think safety also would be the fourth thing. Trust is that we need to get the market to a place that is worthy of investors. And we're closer today than we were last year, and I still think there's work to do.
So it's safe to say that your guys' mission is to increase the maturity of the market and get us to a place where everyone can trust and know that this is like a solid investment going forward.
The truth is really good. The only thing that's been holding this back is bad actors and lack of infrastructure. The truth is going to win the day. The truth is overwhelming that this is a very viable investment medium for the future. It's just a matter of time until we can build the confidence around it. That's it. I'm not much of a salesman. I'm an engineer. I solve problems. I look at data and I try to develop truth. And it was just kind of this serendipitous thing where it's like I'm sitting here in this hobby that I loved, and there's this truth sort of just presented itself that, wow, this really is a viable investment medium. I didn't just invent that out of thin air. I wasn't going to work this hard to sell something to the public. I'm not trying to convince people of something that I don't believe in. This is just facts. And I'm not even here to say that trading cards are too cheap. I'm just saying they're too cheap when you compare them to the other tangible markets that have already matured. Coins are 10 times the size of cards in terms of market cap, 10 times. And trading cards are at least 10 times more pervasive in terms of the public. That doesn't make any sense. Yep. It makes no sense. Fine art is 30 times bigger. And this is in terms of auction sales annually. Fine art does $7 billion in auction sales a year. Trading cards do 300 million. Even coins do 2 to 3 billion. It just doesn't make any sense, except that coins and fine art are mature. They've been around a lot longer.
Yeah, sure.
They've gone through it. Even coins, in this country alone, coins go back 150 years. There's There's auction catalogs from the 1850s with people paying 30, 40 times face value for colonial coins. I mean, coins, there's numismatic societies for coins, right? There's these oversight groups. There's pedigree. There's nostalgia. There's fame. We will have all this. We will, and we're going to do it a lot quicker than they did because we're coming of age in the world of computers.
Yeah, sure.
What would take them 20 years to develop the infrastructure, we're going to do it in 2. But it's still a process, and it's not going to happen overnight.
Plus, you also have the popularity of sports in general, like you mentioned. I think that plays a huge part in it. That sports are everywhere, and the amount of emotional attachment that you have to sports is so great compared to coins, where it's sort of just this random set of like medals. Where this is like connecting with your heroes, right?
You're touching on the most exciting part of it. What we have in tangible assets is a desire to relate. It's a desire to connect with something more wholesome. When you look at trading cards and what they represent, there is nothing that unifies this country and the world, for that matter, more than sports. I mean, you look at what happened with North Korea. Okay, they didn't send their ambassadors down to South Korea. They sent their hockey team, their women's hockey team. The Olympics. I mean, Jesse Owens and the Nazis in the late 30s. I mean, it's incredible what sports does. It unifies cultures. It's something that everybody can agree upon. And then in this country alone, the socioeconomic diversity of sports is so powerful. And so the reason why trading cards is so exciting is this does not cater only to the elite. Trading cards, this is the working man's tangible asset class. Before trading cards, this doesn't exist. There is no tangible asset for the working man. What are you gonna go buy? Real estate, fine art? Forget it. Go to some guy in Ohio and tell him to go buy fine art. When he's just a normal guy.
Right.
It doesn't work. But trading cards, well, wait a minute. No, that actually is a viable alternative. They can relate to that. They can understand it. In a matter of weeks, somebody can understand this market and participate in it and be one of the smartest people in the room. It isn't that complicated, especially if you have a touch to it as a kid.
Right.
So, I think of these analogies like a baseball stadium, 40,000 people in a baseball stadium. You've got billionaires and, people who also stayed late at work for 3 months straight to save up enough money to buy the tickets to go to that. Both people are sitting there and they're watching the same event. It's like Andy Warhol became popular because of quotes like about Coca-Cola. It's like, it doesn't matter if you're a billionaire or a peasant, a Coke is a Coke and everyone can afford it and everybody can enjoy it and they can share that. It unifies.
Right.
That is sports. That is professional sports, and it's becoming more and more pervasive. I was on ESPN the other day. It was like ESPN 4, but it was a cornhole tournament, for God's sakes. It's the real reality television.
Right.
It is honestly is the most true, real thing. Especially you watch enough CNN or Fox News, you get so tired of not seeing truth. Sports is real. It's true.
Right.
It's not a charade. I think as time goes on, it is the unifying principle that makes us so dangerous. If you're, a traditional market trying to keep all the wealth to yourself, trading cards is going to be very, very pervasive. There's just a strong argument for it.
One other thing I wanted to touch on is a lot of guys that I talk to about kind of the investment side of things get a little bit turned away just because of, it makes some of their stuff that they enjoy more expensive, or there's new money coming into the hobby. But when I talk to you guys on the phone, the investment side, there's very much like this range of what you're comfortable with, right? Like it doesn't have to be, you don't have to drop 20,000 on a card. There's a little bit for everybody. And I think to your point, like if it's for the common man, there's like these wide ranges of how much you're willing to invest and how much risk you're willing to take on.
Right. So, okay, what is the analogy? So you've got baseball. I said 40,000 people watching a game. Okay, and they're all doing it. Okay, but that doesn't speak about cards. Except there is that truth in cards. What is it? Well, it's the variance of grade and it's the variance of value at that grade, or the variance of price. So, take something like a Nolan Ryan rookie card. Okay, Nolan Ryan in a PSA 9 is a $25,000 card, but a PSA 5 is $500. What's great about this market is that somebody who's a higher net worth, a higher end investor might buy that $25,000 card if they can find it The other guy, normal people will buy a $500 card. They own the same card.
Yeah.
They own the same card, and I'm somebody who actually thinks the 5 is going to outperform the 9 in terms of ROI, because it can be pursued by a greater demand base, and I think the supply demand mismatch is actually more pronounced at the more affordable grades.
That's interesting.
So that guy who bought the $500 card might even be able to hold it over the guy who bought the 9, saying, "Look who's smarter now."
Right.
When his $500 card quietly goes to $1,500. And this other guy's $25,000 9 goes to $50,000. He feels really great, but the guy who bought the $500 card just outperformed him.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
And they can still have a conversation and share in the same card. That is the unifying principle.
Yeah.
And it comes from professional grading and the variance of grade. So that's a neat detail, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's a really fun detail to point out, especially from your guys' perspective. It may appear that you would only take on big items for your consignment because you guys make more money that way. But to your point, like, there's way more people that are willing to enter the hobby at that lower level, so there's more of a market that can grow there.
Yeah, our market is, or our future is about blue chips. It's about the investment base of this marketplace, and a blue chip is something we'll statistically prove. We'll set the standards and we'll roll it out. What is a blue chip based on the statistics? We'll build indices that are blue chip minded. Those will go live in Q2 or Q3 this year. But the principle of a blue chip, it is the most prevalent, highest valued cards in the market. It's not the rarest. Okay, rarity actually works against investment strategy, and rarity corresponds to higher volatility and lower liquidity. It also can be really good ROI because the supply and demand can work out in your favor. But if you're an investor truly looking at risk mitigation, blue chips are the way to go.
Right.
So you want Nolan Ryan 5s. It's incredibly stable, extremely liquid. You can sell whenever you want. The volatility is generally low because the trades are frequent. You see them a lot. And so the best blue chips in the market are those that trade readily. So I think statistically, this is a guess, but I think the number one blue chip in the world is going to be the Michael Jordan rookie card, 86 clear. Just based on statistics, the market cap of that card, I think, will be larger than any other. And there will be a trade frequency requirement. I think that there are certain cards that are so expensive that they sell once. The market cap is $500,000, but that's not really that undermines the principles that we're trying to convey.
Right.
So we'll have it's got to sell at least 10 times a year. Okay, but with that requirement, what are the blue chips and how they rank? So that's going to be a fun study. We're going to be having some help come online here in Q3 this year. An analyst that will be coming and working with the data for us so we can actually build these methodologies to regress the statistics and actually prove blue chip tendencies. We'll have sub-markets. We'll show how, I know intuitively that T206 portrait Hall of Famers are going ballistic, but nobody's been able to prove it yet statistically. We've seen certain cards go up, but how much? And how much has that whole market risen? Things like this are going to be really interesting to be able to go out and actually take a subset of the market and show its performance.
Right.
So there's a lot coming.
So that's a perfect segue to the ultra rare, sells once every never years, the Michael Jordan Green PMG, and as of the recording of this video, I think it's already over $200,000.
I haven't even seen. I saw it last night when it first launched, but yeah, it's exciting. We've had that card in our possession for about 3 months, and we had slated it for going up into, and we've all just been sitting on things waiting for it to launch. It was part of a group of half a dozen green PMGs that were provided to us that we had graded at PSA recently. But yeah, it's just we throw around words like Holy Grail a lot, and I'm not a modern card enthusiast really. I'm more of a vintage guy, but this card gives you chills. I've never held one before. It's like hobby lore that they even exist, right? And to actually have one come through our doors is just mind blowing. There's a Duncan also in the group, which is another card I never have held. You just kind of hear whispers about, but yeah, so it's exciting to see, and we'll see where it goes. I don't know what it's worth. Anybody that wants to come and say they know is lying.
Yeah.
It's too rare and it's too popular, and it'll be a fascinating thing to see progress.
So something interesting we all in the community noticed is that you guys, so obviously it's altered by PSA, graded altered,
Yep.
And you guys seem to have taken a stance that you think it might not be altered.
Well, everybody's has their opinion, and you know, we respect PSA's opinion. We see what they see. I just interpret it differently. What they see is wear on the right edge of the card, and again, we have these really high res images now, so I would encourage anybody who's curious to go in and take a look and decide for themselves. But there's wear on the right side of the card, and it's more pronounced. It is. I mean, there's just more wear there. I don't. It's right in the middle of the edge. It's not the corners. It's at the middle of the edge. There's more wear. Um, you know, it's a little funny. It doesn't look like the other edges in that regard. Um, I view that as wear. Now PSA says it's too abnormal to just call it wear, so they say it's altered. Um, you know, Nobody thinks it's trimmed. Nobody thinks it's recolored or any other traditional altered tendencies that people would do to alter a card. But so it's entirely interpretive. We totally respect PSA's opinion. We're not saying they're wrong. I have a different opinion. I think that's a flaw that should render the card a lower grade technically, but I think it still warrants a numerical grade in my opinion.
Is there any reason you guys didn't try to send it to BGS first, or at least after the altered grade?
We don't really get involved in the grading process too much. It's not really our job. It's if somebody else wants to do that, they're entitled to do so. We as a company don't grade cards for submitters much. It's a laborious process, and our job is really to sell assets as graded. This was a unique situation where, because of the stature of the card, we didn't feel comfortable selling it raw.
Yep.
We really wanted to get an opinion, and even with PSA's opinion, we think it adds value because at least there's something to reference.
Sure.
And everybody can decide for themselves. I look at this where authentic or not, I don't think it matters. I really don't, because if the card grading a 5 or a 4 or a 6 or whatever we're going to grade, I don't know. It's the card that matters. I do like the reason I emphasize that I don't think it's trimmed or altered. That's my opinion. All right. I haven't babysat the card since its production, so nobody knows for sure, but it's my opinion the card is not trimmed and it's not altered. I do think that's important. I think it suggests that the card is natural. PSA's opinion, I have no problem with it. But I think people can decide for themselves. I highlighted in the auction that it's not an egregious alteration issue, and I think it's worth. I think it'll always stay in that folder, to be honest with you, because I think even if Beckett were graded a 5 or a 6 or whatever, I just don't think it changes the value.
Yeah.
Like the card, it is what it is, and people can decide for themselves. And really, it's the card that sets the value. The grade is, I think we wanted to know, about its authenticity. There's a lot of fake cards and such. We have that, and I think that's really most of the story.
Sure. So kind of taking us down a little bit of a negative path, but one thing that you guys have to deal with a lot, and I know it comes up, is shilling the auctions. And you touched on, kind of the maturity of things and how we have to grow up a little bit as a hobby. And I think figuring out how to get rid of shilling is a big part of that. So what are you guys doing as a company to try to get that out, and how do you try to prevent it?
Well, it depends on how you define shilling. I mean, I think that part of the problem is that there's a word thrown around for a lot of different behavior. I have people who, I'm not kidding, going back 2 years, would call me up and go, that guy who's bidding on that card, I know for a fact he already owns one. Therefore, the fact that he's bidding on this one, he's shilling that auction. Because the concept that you might want to own two of the same card was like, reprehensible. As investors get into the space, the aggression around bidding tendencies is something people need to broaden and understand. There is a competitiveness to this. Market protection is a real thing, meaning like if you own 10 of something, you might be incentivized to potentially own an 11th because you're already invested in that card to the tune of 10. There's nothing wrong with that. It's competitive. Some people who are purists, they have a belief that it's always been a hobby and it should stay a hobby. And in a lot of ways, it'll always be a hobby. But there's an investment overtone that people need to, in my opinion, be more receptive to. And it causes people to act like investors, not collectors. They are pursuing ROI. Now, a shill to me is a fraudulent bid. It's a bid that is placed that has no intention of being honored, or is meant to say like manipulate the auction to provide the illusion of something that's not real. Even if they're willing to pay for it, if it's not really sincere, And the example I'd have is like somebody could take an account that they own and take another account that they also own and bid against themselves and drive the price higher, even if they're willing to pay for it. I consider that a shill bid because it's not sincere to the market. It's not producing an actually it's not producing a true gauge of where the market is on that asset to have that sort of behavior involved. We've dealt with everything. Um, our inherent so with that definition of shilling, our stance is that bidders, investors, they have to place a bid that's sincere. It has to be a bid that they're willing to honor. They cannot retract or cancel their bids, and they can't bid against themselves, and they can't be the seller. Those are our policies. Okay, a seller bidding on their own item is a shill bid if it's an active participation thing. I mean, it gets really gray really quick when you find out that like a friend of a seller is placing a bid. We there's no way to police certain things, but at the same time, the economics have to win out. And the way the economics went out is anyone who places a bid has to be held accountable. Mm-hmm. So if a friend wants to place a bid for another friend and they win it, well, they sure better be paying for that. And if they don't, their account will suffer the consequences. So there have to be punishments, on the other hand, if people don't play by the rules. So what do? Well, we had to have eBay change the code to accept our account because we had so many blocked accounts. We have it's either over 5,000 or 10,000 IDs that can't bid with us because of certain behaviors. So you have to actively police this. When people don't pay for something, they don't work with us again. When people retract their bids, they don't work with us again. There are certain levels of warning and such, but one of the things we fight that's really hard is that the rest of eBay doesn't do what we do. So people who are generally good develop bad habits, and then they bring those bad habits onto items we sell, and they suffer the consequences. We have our gripes. We have been working with eBay for about 5 years to encourage them just to enforce their own bid retraction policy. It's incredible how hard it is to get an infrastructure as big as eBay to act on much of anything. So we police it, hire people to police it. We also engage the message board in a way unlike any other auction facilitator. We love the oversight of the message boards. Not everybody's as polite or patient or whatever, but message boards are a huge policing force for us. They oversee things. They have opinions. We don't always agree with them, but they help us keep the market safer than it otherwise would be. So I would say what we do is we enforce the rules that we set for ourselves the best we can. We block a lot of people who don't behave well. We're trying to set a tone that inspires people to treat the marketplace with more respect. We engage the message boards. I don't know if I'm forgetting something, but the thing I want to convey, because I'm all about being candid, I don't hide from any truth. I'm willing to own where things are good and where they're bad. We can't police everything on eBay. They just don't give us the tools to do so. I can't filter out bidders before they come in. There's no way to do it. There is no filter. So all we can do is accept the chaos as it comes in, set a tone, and hope that our brand kind of scares people to do the right thing. This leaves us with a lot of decisions. We have to decide. How do we survive and provide a safe venue? But again, I haven't checked the bidding, but like if the PMG green's over $200,000, we will check every one of those bidders on a card this high profile. Every one of those people should expect an email from us. Anyone who doesn't get back to us might see their bid removed.
Wow.
We can't do that on every card, but a card of that magnitude where trust and confidence in the marketplace is so impacted, you better believe we're going to do our homework. We're probably even going to restrict that auction in the final day to where if you're not on a pre-approved list, you won't be able to place a bid. And that's just to prevent, again, from somebody who we don't know coming in at the last minute and potentially hurting the auction.
Yep.
These are the stances you have to take. We don't. I think the entire market would do better if we just were more excited about where things are headed and didn't feel a need to circumvent the system or break the rules. It's not needed, and all it does is hold us back. There's a lot of penny wise, pound foolish behavior in our path, and it's time for a brighter day.
Well, it's great to hear that you guys are so looking so hard at the green PMG Jordan card, just because, like you said, if that one gets shilled or something bad happens, that could be bad for the whole market if we
Wow.
can't like mature on that one card, then what are we doing?
Please get on the message boards, get it out.
Sure.
We are militant. We are absolutely militant. I've developed an outright hatred for bad behavior. It's not really a hatred towards people. I think a lot of people who've done things that we don't condone, they're not bad. They're just used to it. They probably have had it done to them, and we've all become desensitized to the rules and how it should be. But bad behavior it's holding up everything I'm trying to create. So pick a side. And hopefully you pick the right one.
Yep.
And if you're not on the right one, I wish you the best of luck.
So with that said, why don't you touch on the future of moving away from eBay? And I know you guys have talked about that by the end of this year. How's that going? And are you guys excited about that move?
Well, nothing's official. I mean, I think that we, for as long as we've been on eBay, have constantly tried to figure out where the balance is. What we work for are investors. We work for the people who submit cards to us and then the buyers. We want to provide the best venue possible. If eBay can be that venue, we may stay on eBay. We look at our own profitability far secondary. We're invested in the long term here. My company will make money with the growth of the market. So we need to run our venue where it's going to be best supported. The thing that eBay has, which is very powerful, is that they have a lot of bidders. We are worldwide. We connect with people. There's a lot there, and that's the reason why we've been on eBay and we'll continue to be on eBay for this year. And we'll be evaluating trust and safety and the degree to which we feel supported to have a partner that upholds our vision for where this thing needs to go. So I wouldn't go as far to say if there's any plans. There's always been plans. There's always been plans to do what's in the best interest of the market. And year over year we've stayed on eBay, but that's the question we'll continue to raise on an annual basis, because it wouldn't be we wouldn't be doing what's in the best interest of the market to not constantly have that as a question. And even if we're independent, it's a question for ourselves. Are we doing all that we need to do? It's a constant growth. And I think as the market matures, the needs are going to go up. The amount of sophisticated people entering this market is only going to increase. And the needs of those people and their expectations and their distaste for bad behavior is only going to go up. The bar is only going to keep getting higher.
Yeah, well, I for one am really excited about everything you guys have going on. So I appreciate you walking us through and being really transparent and open about everything you guys have going on. I think that goes a long way with the community, and I think that's great. So I'm really excited. I want to end on a kind of a fun note. What are your 5 favorite cards of all time?
Wow.
And you don't have to. You could just throw out some cards. It doesn't have to be like ranked or.
Well, so I'm I have my own personal passions, but I'll speak to it from an investment perspective. I'll say my own personal passions go to pre-war baseball. I mean, it's gotten lost, but PWCC is an acronym from way back in the day when it used to stand for pre-war card collector. That was my own handle from eBay way back in the day. So I like turn of the century baseball. I like what it represented. So like my favorite guys are Walter Johnson, Christy Matheson, Honus Wagner. Ty Cobb was an asshole, but what a character. Cy Young. I mean, these first 5 Hall of Famers, Ruth, Gehrig. I don't know. These are the immortals. So like that's my own personal passion. From an investment perspective, I think you have to look where the demand is. And so I think that top 5 cards. I do think the base of trading cards is still in baseball. In fact, I think people lazily still refer to the trading card industry as the baseball card hobby or something.
Mm-hmm.
Ruth and Ty Cobb, 33 Gowdy Ruths, T206 Ty Cobbs. Those are the baseball pre-war. They represent pre-war. There's nothing better than those 2 cards in my book. And then you get into later baseball. I think there's certain brands, Mickey Mantle, Mays, Aaron, Clemente. You could kind of pick, where you want to go in that realm. I think the Nolan Ryan rookie. I mean, that guy played in 4 different decades. He's the closest thing we have to Gordie Howe. Gordie Howe did 5 decades. And people think about that. He played in 5 different decades as a hockey player. How do you not love that guy? But Ryan rookied in '68, finished in '92. 92. It's
That's
like, oh
crazy.
God. So I think a Nolan Ryan rookie is just amazing. That's just a great card. I love the SP Jeter rookie. I'm curious to see where Jeter's brand goes. As he becomes an off-field figure, will he, like disappear into the shadows, or will he be more publicly pervasive? You have to remember you're investing in a brand of somebody. You're investing in their holistic personality. So it's not just what they do on the field; it's what's off the field. So you got a guy like Charles Barkley, he was a hell of a player, right? But he really became twice as popular once he started announcing the TNT. And that's great. He's a personality. The guy is hilarious, and it adds a lot to his desirability as an investment medium. So you got to look at the whole thing. But I think from an investment perspective, people need to look very, very closely at vintage basketball. I think if there's one sector of the market that is overwhelmingly underrepresented, given what should be, logically speaking, vintage basketball and vintage football are probably going to be the highest growth sectors of the entire trading card market. Basketball is international and becoming more so over time. China is becoming a huge player in basketball. They're disproportionately focused on modern. I think they're going to start to get into the more vintage. They'll buy a Jordan rookie, and next thing you know, they bought an Alcindor. And next thing they bought a Chamberlain, and then a Bill Russell. And there's not enough of the stuff to go around. It is so absurdly rare. Vintage basketball is positioned to absolutely explode. We could see 10x returns on vintage basketball, I think. And then vintage football. People need to remember, baseball, it ain't America's most popular sport. It's on the list. It's critically important to our culture, but football is number one, statistically speaking. Why is vintage football so cheap? I don't know. You've got the top 4 or 5 guys that traditional baseball card collectors collect. Jim Brown rookies and Unitas and Bart Starr and Joe Namath. But man, I'm telling you, there is a litany of low entry point investment pieces from vintage football and vintage basketball. So I would say you got to pick those brightest brands. And again, just remember the principles of blue chips, which is it's what's publicly pervasive. It's the brands that people recognize. So always keep that analogy. If you line up 100 people from the public and you ask me, have you heard of this person? Unless the overwhelming majority have said yes, how much of a blue chip is that? But I think the argument is like you take Wilt Chamberlain and Hank Aaron. I can't say I can say one's more pervasive than the other. I'd say they're both just about the same. Everyone's heard of them. They're iconic. They're immortals. Why is Hank Aaron worth twice as much as Wilt Chamberlain when he's twice as rare? Doesn't make any sense.
Yep.
So focus the investor dollars on vintage football and basketball. Hockey's great too, but hockey's more niche.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially vintage basketball and football, I think have a lot of growth.
Great.
I didn't really answer your question. I'm sorry. There's just too many choices.
You like it all, man. I get it.
Yeah. I love quality. Like my big thing, my big passion. We have this eye appeal assessment and such. I love cards that are really nice for the grade. Cards where I see what PSA sees or I see what SGC sees. I don't disagree technically, but the cards that just look amazing for the grade. And I got a soft spot for those cards. So it's like there's Jim Brown rookies that are PSA 5s that just look like 5s, and there's 5s that just look amazing. And I love those cards. Those I think are the best investments in the world.
Great. All right, man. Well, thanks for spending the time. Really appreciate it. Yeah. Any last thoughts?
No, just call me up anytime. I in a lot of ways, the more controversial, the more interesting it is.
Great.
So,
well, that's awesome to hear.
Yeah, if you ever have an interest in tackling something, just transparency is everything. Transparency is everything to our future.
Great.
The truth is in our favor. So
couldn't agree more, man.
People getting engaged.
Well said. All right, well, I'll let you go.
Thank you.